Ukraine has said that its Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been secured after there were reports of a fire that broke out at one of the peripheral buildings in the early hours of Friday. In an emergency address from Kiev, President Volodymyr Zelensky appealed to European allies to stop Russia from triggering a nuclear disaster.
Треба зупинити російських військових. Негайно кричить своїм політикам. Україна – це 15 атомних блоків. Якщо буде вибух, це кінець всім. Кінець Європи. Це евакуація Європи. Тільки негайні дії Європи можуть зупинити російські війська. Не допустіть загибелі Європи від катастрофи на атомній станції.
And also in the latest developments in this story, both Ukraine and the United States have now said that at this point of time there is no change in the radiation levels at the nuclear plant for now. The Ukrainian authorities have said that the fire at the Zaporizhzhia, which is Europe's largest nuclear power plant, broke out due to the continuous Russian shelling on the nuclear facility. The fire that we know of broke out in the early hours of the morning at one of the training buildings outside of the plant's perimeter. Earlier, the Ukrainian authorities, including the Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba, had urged the Russian troops to immediately stop the shelling at the plant to allow the firefighters to douse the blaze, amidst warnings from the United Nations Atomic Watchdog Agency that there could be a severe danger if the fire were to reach the nuclear plant's reactors. The American President Joe Biden has also spoken with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as the White House monitored the situation. Now remember, on Thursday, the Ukrainian authorities reported that the Russian troops had stepped up their efforts to seize the plant and had entered the town with tanks. The city on the Dnieper River accounts for almost about 25% of the country's power generation. The Zaporizhzhia plant accounts for almost about 1/4 of Ukraine's power generation, and Russia has already captured the now defunct Chernobyl power plant, some 100 kilometers north of Ukraine's capital, Kiev. All right, now to get us more insight in terms of what the Russian strategy appears to be at this point of time, we are joined in by Mr. Kadira Petyagoda, who is joining us live from Melbourne. Now, Mr. Petyagoda, this is a pretty alarming development that has come in at this point of time. It is being said that the safety of this nuclear power plant in Ukraine has been secured. But reports say that the reason why there was a fire to begin with was because of Russian shelling. How concerning is the fact that the Russians have resorted to shelling at nuclear stations?
Yes, well, I think the tempo of the war has gone up recently. I think both sides are trying to strengthen their negotiating position. So I think the overall amount of shelling would definitely have increased, especially in places like Mariupol. I think, though, that we should note that both these countries, both these armed forces, the Ukrainian and the Russian, are very familiar with nuclear power plants and nuclear issues generally. Just obviously Chernobyl was in Ukraine. So I think it's important not to be too alarmist and that the fire is under control. And I think that it's important to obviously to make sure that those areas are secure from some uncontrolled conflict.
And also, we're given to understand that there are a total of 15 nuclear power generating facilities in Ukraine. From the reports that we are getting in, although they are fairly conflicted, 4 of Ukraine's nuclear power facilities are already under Russian control. And this particular one, where the fire was reported, which the Russian forces are now trying to capture, produces almost about 25% of Ukraine's power. Is this an attempt by the Russians to try and take the Ukrainians off from the electricity grid that is being produced by this nuclear power plant?
I think definitely the reason for trying to capture the plant is to control the electricity supply, and I think that's one of the sort of the key motives in any kind of conflict, to control the power supply, and I think that's really. But I think whether they would switch it off or not will really, I guess, depend on the kind of strategy they pursue, because I think at the moment they're still trying to win over the hearts and minds of some Ukrainians with the sort of their I think their highest goal would be to be able to form a new government that's more neutral or pro-Russian. And to do that, they need to at least have some of the pro-Russian factions that were there before 2014, that voted for that government before then, to still have some influence. So I think turning off the entire power for the place, increasing the humanitarian catastrophe already, would be something that they'd consider seriously if they want to pursue this goal.
And also looking in terms of, how the war has gone on, although there are people who have said that Russians have been bogged down because of the stiff resistance that they've faced from the Ukrainian forces. But Russia has been making steady progress in the manner in which it is capturing cities. It has got Kherson under its control. It's also on the verge of perhaps taking complete control of Mariupol as well. Russia succeeded, it appears, in creating a corridor linking Donbas to the Crimean Peninsula, and Kiev is also under tremendous pressure because of the 40-mile-long convoy of Russian troops who are camping on its outskirts. How long do you think Ukrainians will be able to hold out against the Russians?
I think I would put it in maximum a few weeks. I think it would be, it's still somewhat unpredictable at the moment how much the domestic population will resist, how many of the Ukrainian armed forces, these are the factors that will influence it, how quickly the Ukrainian armed forces would surrender or lay down their arms, or whether they'd fight on, and whether the civilian population, how much of them will join in the conflict, and how much other sort of chaos and other factors play a role, because it's not just the Russian army here. You've also got the Donetsk People's Republic forces as well going to Mariupol. So there's a number of different factors that I guess would influence how long this conflict would go for. And obviously, I think from Russia's perspective, they would really want it to end as soon as possible. And I think that Zelensky in future negotiations he has, will really try to use the resistance as his only, his main leverage to get some concessions from the Russians.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Kadira Petyagoda, for joining us from Melbourne and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.